Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of SacTown Movie Buffs. Once again, I'm Kier. My partner, my co-host, who's with me, Jason, unfortunately, is not going to be with me today. But if you caught one of our previous shows, we did a pairing of two films that dealt with social media climate. One of them was A Social Dilemma, and the other was Feels Good Man. So we enjoyed those documentaries. Both of them were great. Feels Good Man deals with the character Pepe. There was actually a cartoon drawing that was created by a Bay Area-based cartoonist, and basically it was meant as just like this innocent frog that at some point in time became like this kind of right-wing meme for basically Trump followers and people in different social climates like 4chan and that sort of thing. Well, today I actually have both of the directors from the film, Arthur as well as Giorgio, and we're going to get into a really good conversation just in terms of their inspiration for the film, maybe get some insight into, how the film came about, and then also find a little about their background and any future projects that they're working on. So I say without further ado, we just get right into it. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this down and bring both of them back in. And then we can have a great little discussion about both of these films. So we'll go ahead and bring them in. It just takes a second or two for them to come in. And there is Arthur.
Hey.
How you doing today?
Right on. Thank you, Kier, for having us on.
There is Giorgio.
It'd be great. Yeah.
Good. It was good to have both of you guys on the show. Like I said, Jason really enjoyed the film, and he's really sorry that he couldn't be here today. Like I said, he had another engagement that's preventing him from coming in today. But we both really enjoyed the film. It was one of Jason's favorite films of that we saw of last year, so it's definitely was in my top 20 for that year as well. And we watch a lot of movies, so we
I'm gonna want to know, is it closer to 20 or closer to 11?
That's a great question. That's a great question. So mine is closer to 11, and Jason's as well. So so we definitely enjoyed it. We're a big fan of documentary films. So that's something that we definitely try to gravitate towards, a lot of documentary films. I mean, we like all films. I mean, he's a big horror guy. I'm a big action guy. But we love any films that are dealing with something that's relevant today, especially in the social climate that we're living in right now. So I guess before we actually get into the film, just to get a little background on Arthur and Giorgio, where are you guys both based out of?
We're both in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Wait, Arthur, you sound like a robot. Is that just me, or is that?
Oh, do I sound like a robot? Kier, am I sounding like a robot to you?
No, you sound good to me. Maybe if you're both talking at the same time, maybe it gets a little convoluted, but you sound fine to me.
It's just me then.
I've been accused of sounding like an automaton before, but not a robot.
So then I'll do it this way. I'll start with Arthur. So just basically your background. You said you're based out of Los Angeles, but but I believe you said you were from the Midwest.
Yeah, I was born in Texas and grew up in Missouri, and I come to documentary filmmaking as a second career. My background is in graphic design and animation. And I came to the story of Feels Good Man because I had bought Matt Fury's comic book Boys Club, which is where Pepe first appeared, well before it was a meme, well before it was a hate symbol. Right. I had been a fan of that comic in the late 2000s. And when I moved to California, I actually met Matt through some mutual friends. Okay. And we bonded over our shared love for comics and movies and music and just kind of, art in general. And so when I started to see Feels Good Man appearing in the news and appearing online, the first times I saw that was like 2014, 2015. At first, I wondered if everyone else knew of Matt's comics, and then it seemed like they didn't, and that was a little confusing. And then when Pepe got used there was this 2-week period where in like the fall of 2015, where a school shooter had announced their shooting by using an image of Pepe, and that was reported in the news. And then just 2 weeks after that, Donald Trump, who was then the front-running presidential candidate for the Republican Party, retweeted an image of himself and Pepe, and these two things were kind of reported separately. And in my head, I saw the character and was like, what do these two things have to do with my friend's cartoon? And that was kind of the moment where in the back of my head, the story of Pepe started to churn a little bit. And while this was happening, I was working on other friends' documentary projects as a graphic designer and animator. And one of the projects called Owned, A Tale of Two Americas, which was about post-war housing policy in the United States and the history of redlining.
Okay.
And we'd really enjoyed working together on that film. And we kind of folded the collaboration from his movie into Feels Good Man. And, the story of Pepe we thought was really unique because we had this singular character, Matt Fury, who drew the character, he's a really like lovable, nice guy.
Right. Yeah.
But then we also have the story of how social media and internet extremism has changed all of our lives.
Right.
And so we thought we could tell a small story and a big story at the same time, and that was exciting for us.
Interesting. Yeah. Giorgio, so he was talking about the other film, the Tale of the Two Americas. Is that something that was like Los Angeles based, or was it just like abroad? Or
No, broader. I mean, I was actually in the middle of architecture graduate school, and I was in school during the housing crisis. And so coming out of that, like 2012, 2013, I felt like people were talking about it as if we had recovered. And it seemed to me like there was a much bigger, broader story to tell about the connection between kind of the suburban housing implosion and inner city America and how these two things were inextricably linked. And even though I was in architecture school, like I always wanted to be a filmmaker, but being a director, there's not really like a really clear path forward, right? It's not something you can
right.
intern to do.
Yeah, it's not like there's this big budget film that's out there, and they're just like, man, if we just could find a director that wants to direct this film, we would be good to go.
Exactly. So
we got all the stars, we've got all the big stars, all the players. Brad Pitt signed on. We just needed this director. Where's Giorgio?
Yeah, I kept on emailing people, and they just weren't getting back to me, and it was weird. So
yeah,
it's often the case that like young filmmakers have to basically get there, start making documentaries. And if I was going to do that, I wanted to do something that felt personal to me and felt like something that I was offering a perspective that maybe was underrepresented at that point. And so on top of that, though, like I was really interested in how you make a documentary, like a didactic documentary that's really intended to kind of educate people, but make it feel more like a narrative film, or inject these kind of policy documentaries with more cinematic qualities, because I think we're at a point now where you can give people as much data and information as you want, but it's not necessarily going to sway their opinion, right? We're kind of in a post-truth moment.
Yeah. And going back to the comparison, so we compared both of those docs. This one here, Feels Good Man, and The Social Dilemma, because whereas yours dealt with one person that created something that got misconstrued and became basically, like I said, a right-wing, hate meme, if you will, versus The Social Dilemma was a little bit more of a broader take in terms of what actual social media is doing to America and how divided we're becoming. But I felt like both documentaries dealt with a lot of the same language in terms of how something that can meant to be just very innocent, like in the other documentary, they had the individual who created the like button on Facebook, and how he basically created that button in order to, if you see something, it's positive. You like something that you see. Someone posts a picture of themselves or them doing something and you like it, without thinking of the connotations that now it actually can be construed as negative as well, because what happens when you don't get that like? What happens when you know what I mean? And then it kind of just expands from there in terms of how divided we start becoming and what our news feeds are and that kind of stuff. And so it was a really great pairing, because like I said, yours still dealt with one issue, whereas that one was a little bit more broader. But they both were having the same message, just in terms of like social media and how something just innocent as Pepe, who basically is just this innocent frog that just says these funny things and does these funny, stuff, and, the Feels Good Man and that kind of stuff. And how, I don't even know how, but basically it gets into like 4chan and it starts becoming like this really, really popular meme. And I had seen that meme several times myself. I've seen it like just on Facebook and other social media avenues, and I never associated where it even came from, because no one, all these things, all these memes of whatever they are, they come from something, you know what I mean? And you never really know. It's like the same meme of the guy that like is like, looks, and then he's like, closes his eyes, like surprised or whatever. His name's like Gabriel or something of that nature. I've seen that meme 1,000 times. And, there's all these memes of the girl that's like behind like this like burning building or something like that. Some little girl's like behind a burning building, like she set it on fire. And you never know where these things come from. But, there's a real person that's behind these things. Either they're using the image or they created the image. And, what's interesting about Matt is he just seems like a really just like nice, wholesome guy. You know what I mean? He doesn't seem like he never intended for this to be like some huge meme worldwide thing. And then even when he saw like what was happening to his character, he just kind of like initially just kind of let it go, and then never knew that it was going to blow out of proportion, which it became. And now he's basically, towards the end of the doc, he's basically fighting to like kind of get the rights back to his character and the licensing to the character he created. But but obviously the struggle with that is once you let the genie out of the box, it's kind of hard to then go back and backtrack and kind of like reclaim what has now become like this meme that's everywhere basically. Right. So.
Well, I mean, you go to the first thing you were talking about with the like button, that was something where we realized when we were making the film that, the thing that the internet has done is it's commodified our emotions. Mm-hmm. Liking something genuinely has sort of become like this cynical, algorithmic moment for people. And so Pepe, while maybe he didn't figure into the social media platforms early on, like Facebook and Twitter in the same way other things did, since he started out in message board culture, Pepe was still something that represented emotion for people. And we realized as filmmakers that representation of emotion was something that we could use narratively to help make Feels Good Man this story that really resonated with people at like a core human level. And so we track the beginning of the movie. Pepe is known as the Feels Good Man Frog because that's Pepe's catchphrase. And then we follow his journey from Feels Good Man to Sad Man to bad man to homicidal maniac, to white supremacist. Like it was a useful narrative tool to have this story about the stone cartoon frog seem relatable to any kind of audience.
Correct.
Yeah, it's sort of the way that it's also tracking the history of the internet. I think for a lot of people, when we put out the film, we were obviously really interested and maybe a little apprehensive or concerned about like how people would receive it. Like we were worried about getting trolled maybe, or just the general concerns that any filmmaker has about reception. But like, what people really, especially younger audiences, really came to take from the film was just like a feeling of loss, right? Like that there used to be a culture on the internet that was much different than it is today.
Exactly.
So tracking Pepe's transformation is really tracking the transformation of the internet itself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like I said, that's it's just a parallel narrative in terms of something that starts super innocent and small, and as it grows and becomes bigger. Same with the internet, it takes on a new form, and it's just one of those things where you're like, wow, that's exactly what the internet's like right now. It's like you could put out anything and have the best intentions in the world, but somebody from a 4chan group, which I had personally never even heard of 4chan, to be honest with you, before I actually saw the documentary. I wasn't even aware of where all this stuff comes from. So when I saw the documentary, I had to go back and do a little bit more research in terms of, what that group was all about. And it's insane. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like an insane platform of like these people that are like, super anonymous. They can just go in, they can do anything to an image and post it. And it's really, the sickening thing about it is most of them are anonymous. So it's not even easy to track where, it made that switch or that turn into something that was funny and fun. And then something that eventually became like this right-wing, hate propaganda, meme basically. And you could slowly see from the documentary how it started to make its way into that sector. But it's still like one of those things. There's like, how do you even go after these anonymous people that are taking the likeness of somebody else's property and basically just turning it into whatever they want to turn it into? It's like, how do you even go after a person like that? Because like I said, most of it's just anonymous person that's taking something, they've got a little bit of background and they could just make it into whatever they want to make it into. It's like, how do you stop that? You know?
Yeah, I mean, there's not really a playbook for Matt at that point, right? He's kind of the first person who's really gone through this at this scale.
Right.
And, you know, he's also someone who grew up in, you know, the punk rock and hip hop culture, and just the idea of seeing things remixed or redrawn is something very familiar to him. Like,
right.
So in the early days, at least when Pepe was being used more innocently as a kind of reaction image and a funny meme, I think he just saw it as an extension of the stuff that he did growing up.
Yeah, I would be proud of that. If I made something and somebody was using it in a fun way, you know, just a funny meme and that kind of stuff, you know, I would have no problem with that. I would be like, well, that's awesome. That's you know, and if you know, someone wants to do the research, they can trace it back to me that I was the original creator, and you know what I mean, and that's going to get me more notoriety and maybe some fame or whatever case may be, and maybe I do more work and people are taking it and using it in a great way. But in your head, you're not thinking that eventually some of the wrong or the bad people are going to get a hold of this stuff. And, you know, the flip of the coin is they take it and they make it something that's super hateful. And basically your character gets banned from the internet. You know what I mean? Like you never fathom that's going to happen, you know? So.
Well, yeah, I mean, you make a good point. Like, it is impossible to go after these anonymous people. So what Matt really had to do was go after the people in the alt-right movement that were the provocateurs who were trying to profit from the use of the character. So he went after Alex Jones because Alex Jones was selling a poster with Pepe on it. He went after Richard Spencer because Richard Spencer was basically using Pepe as his de facto logo for his alt-right white supremacy brand. He was using it as like the icon for his podcast. So Matt realized that copyright was kind of the only weapon he had to try to take Pepe back. And it was a very uncomfortable thing for him to do. He's not someone that feels like he wants to put aggression into the world in any way, shape, or form. And he's also someone who just going into a lawyer's office is uncomfortable for Matt.
Yeah, he doesn't look like the kind of guy that's got like a team of lawyers behind him. You know what I mean? He definitely, just from what I saw from he just seems like a really just nice, wholesome guy from the Bay Area that just wants to just do cartoons and you know what I mean, and just you know, like I said, he was in the punk rock culture, skateboarding, and all that kind of stuff, and definitely not the kind of guy that I could see with like a team of lawyers behind him. You know what I mean, going after these people for stealing his intellectual property. You know what I mean, but that's what he had to become because of what happened to his character.
Yeah,
so. Weirdly, it had to get that bad. It had to get put on the Anti-Defamation League's hate symbols database for it to become such a big issue that a big, powerful law firm saw it as a public good to help him pro bono, right? Like it had to get so bad so that he could finally have that support, because before that he's just a solo artist who doesn't have the money of like Disney or Nickelodeon to defend his copyright.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And he also created Pepe when he was in his early 20s, and he actually stopped drawing. There's only 4 issues of Boys Club, and he moved on to doing other artwork. So he'd always viewed Pepe as like, it's very similar to like a band that had one hit and then they have to keep recycling that hit over and over and over again. Right. And people just wanted Pepe, and he was so done with Pepe.
You've been touring for 20 years, and they're like, "No, man, we want to hear the jam from 1995."
Exactly. And so Matt was just wanted the jam from 1995 to go away, you know, so he could do new stuff. And Pepe just kept dragging him back in until he really had to deal with it, because if he didn't deal with it, he knew that, being an artist in the social media age is you basically have to brand yourself. Your work is an extension of who you are. And there were people that thought that Matt was a neo-Nazi.
And that was the point. When I first saw the documentary, I had already known before I saw the documentary that it had become like this, hate, alt-right movement propaganda, if you will. even for my own interpretation, not knowing who Matt was at that time and not knowing anything about the comic, I just assumed that whoever the creator was some sort of right wing, neo-Nazi, or at least leaned very, very to the right. And then when I found out it was like this total like liberal kind of hippie-ish guy from the Bay Area, you're like, wow, that's completely, it just blew my mind. I was like, that is completely not who I thought he would be, So it was very interesting to see that, and just to see like, how did this even happen? Where did this stem from? And it's just, I guess it's just a product of where we're at today in society and the internet and that kind of stuff. So
totally. And we thought the film could be like kind of a unique way of exploring what you're talking about, because it's like, if you understand that this meme that you've shared on social media actually has like effect on someone who's real, that there is this sort of, it will dawn on you that maybe the things that you do online aren't completely isolated into your own social media sphere, that what you post actually does matter to our collective consciousness. And, we thought that was a story that was actually really important. And it was a way to tell this important story and also have the audience along for this weird, stony, psychedelic, documentary that can be funny or nauseating depending on when depending on what part of the movie you're watching.
Absolutely. So now, was this Arthur? Was this your first documentary film? I know that Giorgio was working on something, so this was the first documentary film that you have done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'd always loved documentary films. I was a total film nerd, like you guys, and I think it had always maybe been like a quiet ambition of mine to make a film. But like Giorgio was talking about, there's no real roadmap for this. Right. I'm a cartoonist, and I pitched a few ideas over the years to networks for animated half-hour sitcoms, and none of those had really gotten picked up or made. And this idea and my relationship with Matt was something that I became just kind of, it was something I became obsessed with, telling this story. Got it. And we really approached it as an art project. It wasn't something where we went, pitching it to people very much. We were just like, we're going to make this film. And it was something that Giorgio and I really bonded over. So the first year and a half, we made the film really kind of on our own without any help. And then as we built momentum in the project, as we shot more, we edited more, we were able to show it to people and find funding for it that way. But it was something we were just both really motivated to do.
How long did the project take from basically beginning to end, post-production, and actually getting it online?
Well, I still feel like it hasn't ended. So,
it's not done, obviously.
We self-released the film, so it's been a massive project. So the film took about 2.5 years to make, and then we finished it a year ago. And the streaming services didn't want the film, so we ended up self-releasing it. Giorgio and I, we created our own distribution company, and so we self-released the film, and that's been about a year of pretty intense. The learning curve has been steep.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess just how things are going, the reception, the what you're getting out of the self promotion of the film. How has that been for you? For either one of you can answer.
Yeah, it's been really good. I mean, obviously, putting a film out on your own in any circumstances, it feels like you're pushing a boulder up a mountain. But doing it in COVID is especially strange. But it also like, we had the freedom to do things that other films that were tied to traditional distributors couldn't. So like, we got to do, it's been a huge success, but it's been a huge success because we have really incredible friends who really helped us launch the film. So we did like a lot of sneak previews with notable host guests to host each one of those nights. And we built a website to make the virtual experience feel as much as possible like a communal experience, like you're walking into a movie theater. We had all of our animators and collaborators contribute shorts so that when you came into the virtual movie theater, you saw like a 30-minute block of short films before seeing our thing. So we try to like bring the spirit of the film itself, the idea of collectivity and collective creativity into the release of the film. And I think people felt that, and it's been like, it's been incredibly rewarding. All that said, like, you also feel, even when you self-release a film and you want to like flick off the world and say we're doing this ourselves, you still end up having to give Jeff Bezos money.
Right. Yeah, at the very least, you still got to put money in someone else's pocket. Yeah, we interview, we interview a lot of independent film directors, and a lot of times for documentary films, and they have to self-finance and that kind of stuff. And that is an interesting take that you said, that releasing something during COVID, because I don't know, I do kind of feel like you might have a better shot when no one's really doing anything to basically, hey, we've got this film, let's get this out here, because these people aren't going to be as busy during normal times, because a lot of them were self-quarantining and that kind of stuff, but they can still watch something online from their home. So I feel like,
but even doing like more untraditional, like we did some screenings where we just showed the film for free on Twitch with some like big Twitch streamers. I think with a major distributor, any distributor, they would probably be like, wait, what? You're going to give the film away for free?
Right.
But we ultimately saw it as, that first of all, the film was getting pirated like crazy. And like, it's better to like, at this point, at least for us, to get people to watch the film and then tell their friends, because what we saw was that it was a film that really gets shared a lot between friends. So
and we've always hoped that the film would be like a conversation starter for people. And before the pandemic really kicked in and the shutdown started, we were able to do a handful of film festivals, and the Q&As at those film festivals were all really amazing. People were very engaged with this. And when we were making the film, we sometimes felt as though people were scared of this subject matter, but the reality is, I think people are really wanting to have an in-depth conversation about how social media has changed everything. And so we've always viewed this film as a conversation starter. So since we're self-releasing it, we're having conversations with people like yourself, with like, we did a high school film club last week, we've really just kind of taken this as a work of media literacy, and then let's have real grounded conversations around it in this time where we're all feeling kind of ungrounded and confused. And so that's been our take on it. And it's been really affirming to see how people have enjoyed the film, how people want to talk about the film. That's been something that has been a constant surprise for us.
Yeah. And for me, I don't care what side of the political spectrum you fall on. I think that the important thing is just getting the dialogue out there and presenting something that you can look at and say, oh, wow, that can happen. That's how something, because even if you are on the right or lean more conservative, the same thing could happen to someone that is more conservative. They post a meme and now it's on some other completely like left group that's so far left that you're like, wow, this is crazy as well. So it could happen either way, really. I mean, no matter what type of political spectrum you may fall on. And I think it's important to start this dialogue and this conversation about, what's happening right now with social media, and how social media in theory can do a lot of good, but I'm seeing more bad than good, lately. And in terms of just, and like I said, it goes back to the other doc in terms of where people even get their news from now. Most people aren't going to CNN or, well, maybe some people are, but Fox or whatever case may be. But a lot of the younger generation, they're actually getting a lot of their news from social media. They're getting their news from Facebook. They're getting their news from Twitter, and it's people that are tweeting every day. It's people that are posting, and the algorithms on these channels, they're going to show you things that are more based on what your clicks, So if you are more conservative and you're clicking on more conservative sites, media, whatever case may be, well, that's what's going to fill up your timeline. You log into Facebook or Twitter, you're going to get all these conservative posts and things of this nature, and memes that are more conservative and more, and the same way on the other side. If you're more liberal or Democrat or whatever case may be, you're going to get more posts that are more to the things that you're clicking on, more to the things that you're following on.
Yeah.
And so these kinds of films I think are great for that dialogue, so we can start having these discussions about, let's find a way to reclaim the internet. Let's find a way to get back to what the internet was initially intended for, because it definitely wasn't intended for someone, a cartoonist, to create something and it becomes this alt-right, hate speech propaganda, meme. It never was intended for that, and these types of films are starting that dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's totally right. I think that's a conscious decision we made in how we wanted to end the film. I think a lot of times when you see films about technology, they often end with this kind of refrain that, technology is one and it's dark and dystopic. But for us, I think it was very important to make people aware of the fact that as mainstream culture has become more and more influenced by the internet culture, the net effect is that, like, the culture of the internet, which has increasingly become more toxic and more negative, it rewards kind of negative behaviors. That's all poured into real life. And it kind of shames people out of authenticity and shames people out of an ability to be empathetic.
Right.
It embarrasses them out of their empathy. And I think those have real life consequences, and those are decisions we make on a daily basis. And I think the film is a kind of reminder that that's a choice you make, and you can choose to, like, engage with it, with the world and with the internet earnestly, or you can choose to participate in the kind of BS that social media kind of teases out of you.
I agree, 100%, absolutely. So obviously we're still promoting Feels Good Man. We're not done with that, but I mean, in the foreseeable future, are there any other projects that either of you would like to work on, or a continuation of, or is there anything else that you have in mind that you've been thinking about doing? Or
if Brad Pitt has a film to make, we're definitely down to work.
Yeah, you're definitely down if he calls and says, "Hey, man, I want to do this."
We're actually from the same part of he went to Kickapoo High School in Springfield, Missouri. So
oh, really?
We're from the same part of the world.
Yeah.
That's not to
well,
say
you're in the right media market, so you're in LA, so you might have a shot of.
We came to Feels Good Man, like we were talking about, from this interdisciplinary background. So I think both of us still kind of have that in our heads as we're thinking about things to do after the film. We're thinking about podcasts. We're thinking about animated shows. We're, it's for people who are not in the industry, it's really hard to get anything made, even when you've made something that has gotten some nice recognition and been out in the world. And so, we're excited to continue to work together. And also, I don't think either one of us thought about ourselves as experts on disinformation or experts on internet extremism, but making this film and taking it out, it's kind of becoming a little bit of our lane. So that's also now part of the stuff that we're thinking about and working on, and in terms of inspiration and other projects moving forward.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just as you have this piece, Feels Good Man, if you're gonna do another project, it's kind of like really important what that follow-up project's gonna be, and you really have to be aware in terms of, do you do something completely different, you know what I mean, or do you stay in that same documentary, I guess, world about either social media or climate today or whatever case may be, or do you, like, is your next film going to be like an action comedy? You know what I mean? Like, where do you, you know what I mean? It's like, because you've built this following. You have people that are very receptive to this film, and you're going to have people that whatever you decide to do next, they're going to be intrigued and interested in whatever it is. And unfortunately or fortunately, they're going to have these expectations about what the next film is going to be about. You know what I mean? So it is kind of that touch and go. Like, what do you follow this up with? So
we will accept the challenge.
Yeah.
If anyone wants us to direct Rush Hour 5, that would be
right. We're down. We're not gonna turn that money down. No, for sure. I think at some point, it's especially when you're being basically self-funded, and then I assume you use like some sort of Kickstarter campaign or some sort of crowdfunding or something. I mean,
all of this was possible because we had a really great. We ended up, like Arthur mentioned, we were working kind of in a vacuum for a year, partly because we were young filmmakers, and also probably more so because the subject matter was so difficult that it was hard for people to perceive what the final product would be. There was a lot of ways for it to go bad and much fewer ways for it to go good. And so we had to really film enough and cut basically the first half of the film before we got our executive producers at Wavelength Media on board. So they've been like hugely supportive of not only the making of the film, but self-releasing it and everything. So like we were really lucky to have them as partners.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
we lucked out. We had I mean, that was the thing. It was hard to convince people to maybe get behind the film in the beginning, but it was also a project, and I've been making art for 20 years, and it's rare that things fall into place,
Right.
Usually, there's some roadblocks or things go sideways, but once we started making the film, we had so much goodwill, and all of the people who worked on it ended up doing their best work for not a lot of money. Like we just ended up having a real committed group of people for the story. And I think that that's something we have a lot of gratitude about. And we also realize like, this is a special project that may not happen again, So we're curious to move on to different things, but the industry is the industry, and we're a little bit at the whims of it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. You're kind of, I hate to say, you never want to get yourself into something where you're kind of pigeonholed into a certain subgenre or a class of film. And clearly this is only your first film, so you wouldn't probably be in that, but clearly whoever your audience is and whoever was really engaged and really interested in, and even ourselves, I mean, myself and Jason, we would be curious to see what the next project would be. And unfortunately, we would make the assumption that it's going to be something in the same wheelhouse. You know what I mean? That would be our initial assumption.
Have us on the next time we make something, and we'll recap.
Yeah, we'll recap of what happened. You're like, we ended up doing Rush Hour 5, just like we said, guys.
And it went terribly. It went terribly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, is there anything else that either one you wanted to add about the film, or any future projects or anything of that nature? Anything that you wanted to have audiences direct their attention to, or?
No, just check out the film. It's available on Amazon and Apple, a lot of different places. You can go to our website, feelsgoodmanfilm.com, for any updates. Yeah.
Sorry, I was looking around for Matt Fury published a new book this year called Mind Viscosity. Sorry, I was looking around the room, but I can't find it. It's under a pile or something. But so I would say check out Mind Viscosity by Matt. And we were talking about this being self-released, so we're still very much in the red. So if anyone wants to rent the film or give us a PayPal donation, right on. Thank you.
No, absolutely. I say always support small artists that are self-funding, and it's one thing to shell out your $20 to go catch the next big, Spielberg film, but it's another thing to shell out $20 for, smaller guys that are just, self-funding their own project, and then hopefully they can get this out to more people and get it to more avenues, and then hopefully do another film. So
totally.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for inviting us on, and thank you for
absolutely. And like I said, that is the truth. Yeah, we really did enjoy the film, so we thought it was great. And like I said, I definitely urge anyone that's watching to check it out. We found it on Amazon, but as I said, there's other avenues you can find it as well. It's always good to be able to support somebody that's showing something that's informing. Because it was educational, even for myself, it was entertaining, but it was also educational as well, because I had no idea about the 4chan. I had no idea how it got, I didn't know anything about Matt, to be honest with you. I didn't know anything about him or his background or anything of that nature. So it was very interesting. And then after seeing the documentary, I went back online and had to do more research on him and, his background, and had to do more research on 4chan and some of these political right-wing groups that I had heard of, but I wasn't as familiar with. And so I did my own research on these individuals. And so, and like I said, it's just good to have these types of films to get the dialogue going. And so the people are educating themselves. And so they do know how these things happen. So, definitely applaud both of you for making this film, and like I said, I really do hope that you're able to continue to have much success with this film, and then maybe do a follow-up piece as well. And we'd love to have you guys back on the show again. So, and maybe
Thanks,
Jason will join us for the next one. So,
let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, once again, we thank anybody that's watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Obviously, if you have any questions or anything like that, you're more than welcome to leave a comment down below. And then, definitely go check out the film. Like I said, they said it's on Apple. I found it on Amazon, but you can just Google Feels Good Man, and you'll be able to find a source where you can watch the film. And obviously, pay to watch the film so you support local artists. So well, we thank you again. As always, if you like the channel, we ask you to like, subscribe, make sure you hit the bell notification so you don't miss any of our updates, and we will be back again with another show for you guys again real soon. We thank you for watching and hope you have a great day. Bye.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Later.